they have tried to go the easy way and try to cheat in as I see, a natural system of progression in your life, and you learn from mistakes and crises and so on, and it's like a technocratic mindset has taken over this, and think we can do it with the help of technology instead of just have a life you're living and experience. And I talk about this is the transhuman
transhumanism
idea.
And posthumanism is also,
and it's like we will defeat death, we will defeat every illness and all these things, and create this perfect world. It takes away what's human.
Hi, everybody. Are we free to make our own choices? Does democracy work the way it's supposed to? Or are we being manipulated into certain behaviors, certain patterns of behavior, certain lifestyles by global elites with an agenda, with a nefarious agenda, perhaps? I'd like to introduce you to writer, musician, researcher, and what else? More things. Jakob Nordangård, welcome to the show, Jakob.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, what are you? Are you primarily a researcher or an author, or what should I call?
I'm all these things.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to pinpoint what I actually am.
It is kind of difficult to categorize you.
Yeah. Mm.
But you have written a lot of books, and we're going to talk about those today. You're a debater and you're an influencer, you might say, also in some respects. So when I first got to know you, you had just co-written a book called The Doomsday Clock, or it's called Domedagsklockan in Swedish.
Yeah.
And that was mainly about the climate agenda, the global climate agenda, and how it came about.
Yeah,
I would say. As I recall, your contribution there was based on your doctoral thesis, which was called Order
up Cow, the political history of biofuels in the European Union.
Yeah. And that was actually, somebody tried to stop that thesis, I heard.
Yes, the president of the Club of Rome.
That's kind of interesting.
It is.
How did you get to understand, to know that was happening?
I didn't know during when I defended the thesis, but when I had this dinner afterwards, celebrating that I had been approved, one of my colleagues told me he sat and talked to the opponent, and the opponent said during this dinner that the president of the Club of Rome had phoned him. I don't know if it was one day before I was supposed to defend it, or 1 week or whatever, and that he had tried to convince him to be more hard on me. But it wasn't the only thing, because some months later, I was at another a PhD student that also had his defense of his, and then he had his party afterwards. And my former supervisor talked to me at that party, and he said that, oh no, it wasn't only the opponent that he called. He also called
the head of the university.
He threatened to go to the head of the university,
okay.
But the grading committee. He talked to the people in the grading committee, and also my former supervisor, and trying to convince them to not approve.
And we're talking about Anders Wijkman here.
Yes.
who was at the time the president of the Club of Rome. I guess he's not that anymore.
No, I think he became the president very close to the time this defense of the PhD thesis, and he also he was very connected to my university, Linköping University.
Okay.
He got an honorary doctorate just the year before.
Okay.
And he was involved in some university courses and knew the professors, and so they had gave him a copy of the book.
So then we also, of course, have to say something about why he acted in this way, because I mean, what you had written, in a way, kind of threatened his standing in the world in a way, because you revealed some connections that he didn't want to be revealed. Namely,
yes.
that, I mean, for instance, the Club of Rome, which he was a part of.
Yeah.
You described in your thesis that the Club of Rome was involved in the building up of this climate agenda, and which nobody knew about at the time.
Yes, and also the policy making in the European Union, because he was a parliamentarian, and I studied the biofuel policy of European Union, and he was responsible for they had this renewable energy directive that the Commission had came up as a proposal, and Anders Wijkman was the one that was responsible for taking this through the parliamentarian process.
Okay.
So he had a very, very important role.
Yeah.
And I made an interview with him before this, 2 years before the defense thesis.
Was he suspicious already then, or?
I think he became suspicious during the conversation, because I had studied his networks a lot, and I asked a lot of questions about, okay, you have this, you are a part of the Club of Rome, and you are also the president of another organization called the Globe EU, and who are you really working for? Whose policies is it? Is it the Christian Democrats that you
represent? The party? Yeah.
It was very obvious when I studied this. He didn't work for the Christian Democrats in Sweden. He was put on this position and working to get the legislation that more powerful networks wanted to achieve.
Very interesting. Yeah. So we'll get back to that, because I mean, you've been delving into these networks, these Venn diagrams, if you will, not Venn diagrams, but kind of spider diagrams between all these organizations and entities that work together for. So this is what you've been writing about in all these books. And when you wrote about this in the Doomsday Clock, the book that I mentioned, which was based on your thesis, you kind of described climate alarmism from a perspective that was new to me, because it was about all these globally influential groups, organizations, corporations, and societies, sometimes secret societies, but also open societies, that seem to have kind of orchestrated these policies that slowly but steadily, emerged, in ever more countries, and that was very fascinating and new to me. I kind of was, I guess, more interested in the science of climate change. So I want to know, is it true or not? Is there a change going on or not? So this kind of background history was or story was not that interesting to me at the time, but it was fascinating because it was new. But I have now more and more realized that it all goes together. And you have since written several books. One was called Rockefeller Controlling the Game, The Global Coup d'etat, and The Digital World Brain. I have two of them here in Swedish, and we can put up, of course, digitally the pictures of the books in English. This is the global coup d'etat, and this is the digital world brain.
Yeah, the digital world brain, yes.
The digital world brain. So, and I should say that you have also all along written music, and your music is also connected to what you have found that you write about in your books. Isn't that true? That
Yes,
goes together.
Yeah,
in a way.
yes, because during the time I wrote my, I applied as PhD student, and at the time I was convinced. I was part of the Green Party and environmentalism and everything. And during the time, it had already kind of begun before I started my position, but things changed for me a lot. Understanding how this game was actually played, and that the environmental movement that I had been a part of was created by very, very powerful people that were the ones that me as an I don't consider me as an activist, but it was the elites of the world, the Trilateral Commission, and all these powerful organizations. But we were against, and then I found out that they had been very, very involved in setting up the environmental movement. And during that period, I became very, you could say, when I found out these things, I got angry. I had some frustration, and also that it was very, very hard to get this information out and talk to people and talk to my former friends in the environmental movement, because they didn't want to hear this. So I started to use music to let out my frustration, anger, and everything. It was a tool to calm things down in me. So
kind of a valve or whatever,
letting the steam out.
Yeah.
So I started in 2009 writing music, and started the band Wardenclyffe in 2011, and writing songs about these political agendas, and write about, maybe because you can't write what you actually feel when you're angry in a doctoral thesis, in academic work.
Perhaps
it's not so. But I could use the music instead, and so
kind of a perfect combination then, the intellectual writing and then
because I have this both sides, an artistic side and an analytical side. So
left brain, right brain, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in the end, I decided to have a soundtrack on together with a dissertation, and I thought that I just thought at the time, I wonder if someone has ever made a soundtrack to a PhD thesis.
It's kind of unique.
Yeah,
I think.
And I have to do it.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's hard rock.
Yeah, it's hard rock.
Metal, or how would you describe it?
Yes, I would. I mean, it's rooted in Black Sabbath and these kind of more doomy bands.
Well, maybe it's suitable for the themes that you.
Yeah, of course, it's very suitable.
Sing about and write about. So this band name, Wardenclyffe, is it named after Tesla's tower?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's
and it
cool.
Also comes from the research I did on energy policy. Of course, Nikola Tesla and energy. I mean, the Wardenclyffe Tower was a transmission tower for where he experimented with
free energy
and so on, and also communication all over the world. He was very, very early with his thoughts. And during my research, I found very, very strange networks and organizations that talked a lot about Tesla technology and with something called the Noosphere Forum that I have written about in my books.
Oh yeah, the Noosphere, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of references to Tesla and pictures and fantastic images with the Wardenclyffe Tower, and so I thought this was very suitable as a band name. And also studying energy, I was the I was studying energy policy, and I had also studied a lot of energy as a geography student. So it was kind of fitting to have this band named after another this inventor and brilliant mind.
Yeah. Just to go briefly back to your thesis again there. I mean, it is formally about biofuels in the European Union, but that's kind of a cover almost, because it's about so much more. It's about, I mean, these connections, these corporations and organizations that have built this up over a long period of time. Do you think you were the first person to do that in that way in the world? To map out these connections between, for instance, the Club of Rome and how it was connected, and how this climate agenda was produced, was constructed, was, I mean, developed over decades. Globally.
I haven't found any that has been earlier. I actually found when I started, the year before I started as a PhD student, I found I bought a book by William Engdahl called Century of War. And that was one of the big revelations for me, because in that he explained how the oilmen of its day in the early 70s, late 60s, had funded and founded a lot of environmental organization, and that came as a shock for me. But my analysis with the climate, that wasn't, nothing was mentioned about climate change agenda. So that was something I had to check out. But I knew something about the environmental history and also, I mean, it has been documented before, but not climate change. I read a lot of works about the history of global warming and so on, but they never mentioned the ones that were behind funding and it was always about the scientists that were considered as they were themselves these people that could do this and make this a scientific issue, a political issue. But it wasn't the case because one thing, and that's why I wrote the Rockefeller book, everything, it was like a lot of things with policy on a global level started at the Bellagio Center in Italy. Bellagio Center is run by the Rockefeller Foundation.
Also a hotel in Las Vegas, but that's a different story.
I think it's located at Lake Como or something in Italy. And the Rockefeller family bought this in the early 60s and built this center. And a lot of Club of Rome's founding, the Bellagio Center, for example, and also when I made my study about biofuels, we had this biofuels consensus document agreed upon in Bellagio. So it was I always ended up, when I was studying the policy process, I went, first I checked maybe the proposal from the commission, and then it was footnotes, where does this come from? And I just followed it until I came to the origin. And it was very, very often this Bellagio or the Rockefeller Foundation or other big foundations that was the originator of the policy ideas.
Yeah, they say follow the money, but you followed the name Rockefeller, or you followed the money as well, of course.
Yeah, I followed the money, and the reason I wrote the book of Rockefeller is because I studied a lot about before I became a PhD student. I was very interested in the peak oil theory. I was kind of alarmed of this.
It's gonna end.
It's gonna end, and this was in the like in 2004, after the Iraq war and everything that's happening after the 9/11 incident and the oil wars. So, and I heard these reports about okay, it's because of peak oil.
Yeah.
They have to get the oil fields
Yes.
and control them. And so I was studying the peak oil business for a couple of years, reading everything I could, following the how the oil price fluctuated and so on. Very nerdy, but and I also study the history of energy and oil, and the Rockefellers were in center of this with their Standard Oil Corporation, and then later the ExxonMobil,
one of the biggest oil
Chevron. Yeah, exactly. So it was very. They are in the middle of the oil industry and has been, and they more or less constructed the oil-run civilization. So for me to find out that the climate change agenda also had been created by these people, it was just why do
pretty
these,
counterintuitive, I would say.
It was just strange. So I wrote this Rockefeller book to have a. I really wanted to dig deeper in the reasons why an oil family start to and not like they took over a movement. They actually created it. They managed to get it in on the presidential agenda in the 60s, and then the United Nations agenda in the early 70s. We hadn't been talking about climate if it wasn't for their funding and their working very, very hard behind the scenes.
Would you say it was solely the Rockefellers and the Rockefeller Foundations, or were there other big corporations also that worked in tandem with the Rockefellers to pursue this climate change agenda?
Yes. But especially the Rockefeller Foundation and later the Rockefeller Brothers Fund has been very, very in the middle of it. But working, of course, with other powerful players, like we have Anellis in Italy, and I found a lot of connections with the Chase Manhattan Bank that David Rockefeller was the head of during the 60s and 70s. And he had built up this network with people, very, very influential people all over the world. And this network were the ones that achieved this policy changes and managed to for example, it was an MIT professor called Carol Louis Wilson that was a close friend of both Nelson and David Rockefeller. He was a part of something called the Special Studies Project in the late 50s. Henry Kissinger was the one that was the coordinator of this project. And they identified climate change as an important thing because they had this idea of a unified world, one world. We have to create this new global structure. A lot of because of business, and Standard Oil was a global business, so it was in their benefit. But they identified certain scientific problems that could help to achieve this. And because they said climate spans over borders, they also said that global health spans over borders. So we have to put money and effort into this. And
there you have the Gates Foundation. We talk about global health.
Later. But at this time, Rockefeller Foundation was one of the very, very influential in WHO and so on. So and during so we decided in the 50s, this is the thing, and they had this other scientist, Roger Revell, and also Swedish scientist, Carl Gustav Rossby and Bert Bolin, very close to the Rockefeller network. And they were the ones that made this the important thing during the 60s in the scientific community. We have to look into this and got funding. And Carol Lou Wilson, the MIT professor, he was at this was a part of a project in the 50s, and then during the early 70s he arranged some meetings one in United States, Williamsburg, I think, and the second one at Svante Arrhenius' the birthplace, Vik, outside of Uppsala. The study was called the Study of Mankind's Impact of the Climate. And so we discussed how humans have influenced the climate, not just with carbon dioxide. But this was very, very, very important and laid the ground for the Stockholm conference
1972.
Of the environment.
Yeah.
And the Rockefeller, very close to the Rockefeller Circus, was a Canadian named Maurice Strong that was heading this meeting. Both Maurice Strong and Carol Lou Wilson was also members of the Club of Rome, founded at the Bellagio Center. So
it's a coterie of people who all know each other.
and Carol Lou Wilson also, he was at the board of Council on Foreign Relations, very, very important think tank in the United States that was headed by David Rockefeller at the time. And he became a member of the Trilateral Commission, very, very important for economic globalization policies from 1973 and onwards. So it's very... it was hard for me just to this is too much. It's not like they were not a significant player in this. They were really in the middle of it because they had the ability to influence United Nations policies, and also they had a very, very huge impact on actually setting up the United Nations in 1945 and donated the land where they built the United Nations headquarters. So very, very much it's like Nelson Rockefeller, that later became vice president of the United States. He considered to be our organization, and actually the Rockefeller brothers, very influential, every one of them, they actually said we could have United Nations headquarters out at Cantico Hills, and that's where the Rockefeller estate is. So actually, and that's one thing we have to remember. But after the Second World War, the Rockefellers were in an extraordinary position as became. United States wasn't bombed during the war. Their economy was booming, and they were in the middle of it. And the oil companies that they controlled were in the middle of it. So they were more or less the most powerful family in the world after the Second World War.
Yeah, but just to, this is really super interesting and counterintuitive, as you point out here, for people to understand how this is possible, because you never hear about this unless you reads your books, for instance. That a wealthy, influential family with that has built up some of the biggest, most powerful oil companies in the world can be behind this climate change agenda, because how is it? Is it that they they understand that they're not going to be able to sell oil in the future, but they don't care about that because they care about other things. They want to be influential in other areas, or is it that they think that, well, people are going to buy our products anyway because this is never going to happen, but we can just pursue this agenda and make people think that there's something else going on, but we will still sell oil. If you catch my drift here, it's very difficult for ordinary people to understand how, because you hear about the oil companies being on the other side, on the evil side, like the Koch brothers. They are often pointed out that, oh, look at the Koch brothers. They try to influence people to become climate deniers or climate skeptics, and those are the bad people. But these are oil companies, big oil companies that are behind the green agenda.
Yes.
Can you once again try to explain in a few sentences why are they doing this? I mean, we're going to delve deeper into the deep history and all that, but I mean, just
it's about being
the short answer.
Be very smart, okay. and because they know if they do something as oil companies, and they will get a reaction on what they are doing. And they don't want this reaction to spiral out of control and make business hard for them. So it's better to run the opposition yourself, as Vladimir Lenin once said. So
it's a preemptive activity.
It is, and they will actually work for you in the end. And it's also the solutions that they come up with, like big windmills, wind farms, and so on. They know this will can't be run without a backup energy system with oil, and they can invest in wind farms, of course, but then take out the money before it
becomes operational.
Exactly. So they are businessmen. They think in business and also using these groups. So you can find it's very, very easy to go into the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and find the things that they are supporting. A lot of activist groups that are on the left. And they more or less brag about it. We are the good people. But and one thing that I also became not a shock, but they said we're going to divest from oil. And we had this, it was like in 2008, 2014, they were very much into, now we're going to divest from our foundations, only will no oil invested in. But the thing what happened was that we have this other company that runs their financial business, the Rockefeller Capital Management firm. They bought more stock in Exxon and Chevron, and now we have more stock than we had in 2014 when we initiated this divestment program. So we have this both sides all the time. But when they can point out we are these good guys, we want to create this green world and so on. But,
do you think that investigative journalists have covered this very well?
No, some have looked into it but it's like they are so much in this left-right paradigm. It's just left right all the time, and they don't. Because what I wanted to do in my PhD thesis was I want to have this helicopter perspective and look on both sides. Where does the money come from, and how is it working?
It's super interesting, really. Now let's talk a little bit about your upcoming book here, Temple of Solomon.
Yeah,
out in mid-December, right?
Yeah,
and as far as I've just read it, and as far as I understand, I haven't read all of your books, but a couple of them. It kind of ties together the other work that you have done. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it's. I would say it's another. It's another level of it.
Because you mentioned all these things. That
I
about
do
now, but also many other aspects.
And I talk more about spiritual agendas as well. Yeah. Because that's one of the things that I. During the work, during my PhD thesis already, I could see some very interesting connections that, for obvious reasons, I couldn't have it in a thesis about biofuels.
No. So you needed to dive a little bit deeper also.
Yes. And it's a more personal work. It's not that academic as my other work is. Although I try to in those chapters that are more scientifically. I have the footnotes and everything, but it's also about a personal journey.
It has a very personal tone, and it's partly a bit mystical and all that, which I appreciate. I love those kinds of things. And it goes, of course, then far, far beyond the climate issue. It tells about an agenda that has been molding for a very, very long time, that aims for kind of a new world, a new human even. Something that many people may think is a beautiful thing. It sounds beautiful, but the vision is rather anti-human, isn't it?
Yes. What has come out of it? This is very much based on utopian thought, and I don't think, and I try to not say that people are intentionally evil. A lot of people believe they want a better world and also become better as humans. I mean, that's good things, and there are a lot of good things that we can find in. I mean, it can be in religion and I mean, personal development and all these things that comes with spirituality. I mean, it's a part of being a human and strive for something, but it can be hijacked and it can be misinterpreted. And what I write about is how they have tried to go the easy way and try to cheat in as I see, a natural system of progression in your life, and you learn from mistakes and crises and so on, and it's like a technocratic mindset has taken over this, and think we can do it with the help of technology instead of just have a life you're living and experience and kind of get rid of a lot. I talk about this is the transhuman.
Transhumanism and posthumanism is also,
and it's like we will defeat death. We will defeat every illness and all these things, and create this perfect world. But I don't think it's perfect, because I think it's the joys in life comes with experience a lot of bad stuff as well. And that's where I, for example, during very, very hard times in my life, that's when I have created the most beautiful things and music. And so to try to create this perfect world, perfect human, it takes away what's human, actually.
I agree. Get back to the spiritual side of things, I think, later and ask you more about that. But just to talk about the book now, Temple of Solomon, how it's laid out, your story there about how this agenda has been developing, winds over the centuries from, I mean, there is a chapter about, an amazing chapter about the mesmerizing 16th and 17th century figure of John Dee. Fascinating person.
Very, very fascinating.
And over to the, I mean, I just jump over a couple of examples, but over to the 19th century British imperialist Cecil Rhodes, which I had no idea was involved in these kinds of ideas, and all the way up to the 20th century features like the Round Table movement, the League of Nations, the United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, and as we've already talked about, the Club of Rome, the Trilateral Commission, and the World Economic Forum. And you weave together this with the elements also of modern pop culture, like movies, Hollywood movies, like The Matrix, of course, which is often mentioned on this channel, because it's such a good metaphor for what we're experiencing in many ways. And also the omniscient computer HAL in the fantastic film 2001: A Space Odyssey. HAL is both an acronym and a word in Coptic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It means, what does it mean? You wrote it in the book?
I can't recall it just now, but
Is it simulation?
Yeah, simulation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
It is.
So that's it all
It's
goes
something
together.
artificial.
Something artificial, yeah.
Yeah.
Which the computer is, and which these other things also are that you're writing about. So what's going on here? How much you already touched on this, but how much of this is, I mean, from John Dee and onwards, is part of a conscious plan, and how much is free and creative ideas that have been hijacked by malevolent people? Could you make an assessment there? I mean, you don't do it in the book because it's probably a bit difficult. But
it is difficult
to know what is what.
Yes, because I think, as I said, a lot of this, we're not trying to be evil. We actually believe this will create a better world. But it's their vision of the world, and that's one of the things I warn about, or that I don't think it's a good thing to try to make utopia, because utopia for you may not be the same utopia for another person, and so the evil part is trying to get other people to play your game, but it's like I don't think these people intentionally thinks that it's like
maybe a few of them, maybe some are pulling the strings,
and as I write in a chapter about psychopathy, because that's what I see as a problem we have, and that's why I don't think we can make a real utopia, because we are humans and we have differences, and it's how do you get rid of psychopathic people? That means you have to be a psychopath yourself,
and that's a real problem. I've written a little bit about this myself, or made videos about it. You mentioned the term pathocracy in the book, and that's I think a very good term. I can't remember who coined it, but anyway,
it's a Polish psychologist,
right? Yeah, because it's a sad fact that people who are psychopaths or sociopaths, they are much more likely to strive for these powerful positions.
Yes,
because it's kind of in their personality to do that.
It is,
and most good people don't want to be bosses. They don't want to lead countries, because they realize, they understand that I can't tell other people what to do. But then we have this structure that is hierarchical, which means that somebody has to be the boss, and so the psychopaths strive for those positions. To be there. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation where, I mean, if you want to have a good world, you really ought to kind of just get rid of the system, don't you? I mean, the structure. You need a different structure, which is less hierarchical, and more horizontal. I don't have the answers as for how that's going to come about, but in order to get rid of these, the pathocracy that we're living in, we have to change things very radically, don't you think?
Yeah, we have to.
But on the other hand, revolutions have not been a good idea.
No,
over the course of history,
it hasn't.
There is another pathocracy.
Yeah, because it comes another psychopath. I mean, I think George Orwell in The Animal Farm explains it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. So there's an organization you mentioned here that I never heard about, and you depict it as a rather shadowy entity. It's called the Lucis Trust.
Yeah.
And that seems to be involved in all kinds of global projects. What kind of an entity is this?
Lucis Trust is rooted in theosophy.
Yeah.
And it's I became interested in the philosophy of theosophy when I was kind of a teenager already, because it was like this is for people that are searching for the truth, and don't just fall into religious dogma, but with a free spirit, try to almost scientifically, because that's what we say, try to explain the phenomena that goes out of a more material world. And it was Madame Blavatsky was the originator of this. But later, and she founded something called the Theosophical Society. But as an offshoot of a Theosophical Society came the Lucis Trust in 1920, something like that. And was run by a couple, Alice Bailey and Foster Bailey. And they started to publish books that was dictated, or it was
channeled,
or Bailey says no, it was not channeling, it was telepathy or something. That, and so she wrote these books with, but it was someone was called Joal Kuhl, that was the real author. So, but she said she took inspiration from this. We started this Lucis Trust and got this spiritual advice on how to create a better world civilization, more or less, and explained in especially a book called Externalization of a Hierarchy, because we talked about a hierarchy of masters.
But are these masters in other dimensions, or are they physical people on this plane?
That's very hard to
Okay.
because we have Blavatsky said they were physical people, and later they have been more like spiritual entities.
Okay.
But still they claim that next year the Externalization of a Hierarchy, the book, it was written during the Second World War, out in 1957, but they talk about in 2025 the hierarchy will appear physically in the world.
Okay.
And it has been preparations since United Nations was founded, and they claim that the hierarchy has been involved in this behind the scenes. That's the story. And so now next year we will see what happened.
Yeah.
But they have been very, very influential. When you look upon United Nations, they have offices,
advisors here and there.
Yeah, and offices right. I mean, in very close to United Nations headquarters, and in Geneva also, and in London, very close to the power centers of the world, and a lot of influential people involved in this as world servers. So, and they claim that during these times, all the important organizations and so on will be run by people from that have this mindset, this Lucis Trust idea.
Would you say that any of these influential people that have been kind of working behind the scenes all along, that any of them at all have run for president or prime minister or for public office? Or is it that those people that we think run the world are actually only, sock puppets?
Yes, I think a lot of this is theater. And it has increasingly become so.
Increasingly?
Yeah. I think that we had leaders that were more independent before. I think now it's very, very like a theater with the right candidates chosen to be on certain positions.
Well, there is one election that we just experienced, which is kind of interesting in this context, because it seems as if those people that are now taking office in the United States, there, the second Trump administration seems to, at least in my eyes, to be kind of contrarian if you compare with other politicians around the world.
Yes.
So that's an interesting thing that's happening now.
It is.
How much?
But
we haven't seen it.
We haven't seen it, and
out.
we know from the last administration, the Trump administration in 2017 to 21, that it didn't change that much, and Donald Trump was actually very much into these policies during the pandemic and so on. So
he had Anthony Fauci by his side.
And exactly, and Goldman Sachs was running the economic show as always. So,
but now he has a different team around him before he takes office, which is more people who want to change things.
Yeah, but then when we have the technocrats. Elon Musk and
that's right.
Peter Thiel.
Peter
Thiel, I think, is a very important figure in this, and Musk, of course, also. But if you as a leader like Donald Trump says, we're going to beat those evil cabal or whatever, you don't have a cooperation with one from the Bilderberg group. Peter Thiel is in the steering committee of the Bilderberg group, and it's the same people. So
Trump doesn't really know that, does he?
Well, he has to.
What do you think about RFK Jr. then?
Yeah. I was kind of surprised that he joined up with Trump. I think it's Trump that will have the most to gain from it in the end, because we know how Trump acted during the former Trump administration. But we will see. Maybe something good can come out of it.
It's going to be very interesting. If I mean, a lot of things happen very fast nowadays, and it's. We're recording this by the end of November, and he's not going to be inaugurated until the 20th of January. So a lot of things can happen,
and I think a lot of things will happen during the administration.
Yes, of course. I don't know if you're familiar with the philosopher and writer Charles Eisenstein.
I know the name, but
he teamed up with RFK Jr. actually when RFK was running as an independent. And this guy Eisenstein, he's not a politician type. He's very philosophical, but he thought that this was if he could make have an impact, make a dent in the policies that this guy was pursuing. He thought it would be worth the while. So he was with RFK for some time, and then he quit a few weeks after RFK joined the Trump team, but not for that reason, I think. But he thought, I can't do anything more. Anyway, he wrote this the following in a recent Substack post. We are facing uncertain and exhilarating times, a convergence of crises, and a blossoming of new possibilities, disintegration and renaissance, a collapse of sense and meaning that clears the ground for a new story to grow. Illness on every level, physical, social, political, will intensify in coming years, drawing to it unimagined modes and technologies of healing. Such is civilization's birth process into a new era. Part of this will likely be a series of revelations, discoveries, and events that shake the foundations of our governing belief systems. Much of what the vast majority of people in the world thought they knew will bear one shattering assault after another. And I doubt any of us, including me, will emerge through the next 4 years with their existing beliefs intact.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. I agree. There are things coming.
Revelations will come up to the surface.
Yes. And I write about it in the book. Truth, you can't stop truth in the end. It's impossible. And the harder you try to stop it, the more it wants to come out. And I thought, did you see this, the Estonia memorial that Swedish television was...
No, I didn't see that, no.
Do you know about it?
The monument? Or
No. They had this, it was a jubilee, or jubilee. It was like 20... was it 30 years after?
30 years after the disaster.
The Swedish television, they filmed this, and they had a lot of speakers invited for this event, and it was those behind this was the surviving association, and so they arranged this. They invited our Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson. They invited the King and Queen and a lot of very, very high-level people. The Speaker of the Parliament and everything, and they said, because they had all these speeches. The King started. The speaker, because he's
number
he's
two,
number
in
two,
rank,
and the Prime Minister. But then they said that we want 3 people from the Survivor Association to give speeches as well. And this was broadcast live by Swedish television, and they really said everything. About all these things about Estonia that has been considered as the elite says this is conspiracy theory to even mention these things, but they said it in Swedish television. And it was like panic mode, and we had the King and the Prime Minister and everything. So I think it was a perfect example on how truth wants out. They couldn't get away from it, and the Swedish television they didn't have it on. It wasn't available to watch for that long after this, but with the help of modern technology, someone has put it up so you can still watch it. And that's one thing I write about in the book as well. As it's like the technological system that some of these people think will be a perfect way to manage people and manage views and secure the world from unpleasant truths, actually is revealing truth. It's impossible.
There's a battle going on for the communication here. Who's going to? Because it's, as you say, it's. I mean, you can look at the internet, for instance, in 2 ways. One way is that it frees up creativity and openness and communication for everybody in the world. It's like the book by Clay Shirky, "Here Comes Everybody," 15 years ago, and then there was some backlash, some backpedaling there, and powerful people took over and try to, control the narrative, control communication, and this is a big discussion going on to this day, of course, about how they control social media and all that. But still, I mean, it's there. It's everybody can, as long as they, as soon as they put the lid on one channel, there's another channel popping up somewhere else. So it's very difficult for them.
Impossible.
It's a very interesting time.
We had much more control when we weren't that technologically advanced.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, what this technocratic vision then? What's the goal for these elites? Is it to install a technocratic top-down world order? Is it that people should conform, or as you said before, is it that they have this good intent and they think that everybody is basically good, but people don't understand their own good? So we need certain people who decide how the world's going to look, and it's going to look technocratic. Is that the goal for most of these elites, would you say?
Yes, they want to direct the world and set up the guidelines and the values for a global society. And they want you to use artificial intelligence and algorithms and also a lot of techniques through the use. Everyone. That's a goal, that everybody in the world will be digitally connected, because in that way you can manage people. You can collect information about every person on Earth, and
social credit system, digital currency.
And they think they can make it better by using this behavioral design techniques with sludging and nudging and to make people conform and do the right behavior. If they do the right things, they will be awarded. If they do the wrong things, they will be punished. So that's basically the system, and it's like a system that you won't need that much prisons, because it's like the choices you make now. If you do the wrong choices, you can't buy the things you need to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
So do all these elite groups want the same thing, or is there some kind of competition going on between different groups on the top level?
It could be. I think if you are an elite people, you will love a system that you have that kind of view and control over people. So it could be a difference in what they want to use it for.
Yeah.
What philosophy they have, but the philosophy that unites those in the top is power. Power over people.
There's one narrative that I've always been puzzled by it, and it's the narrative of overpopulation.
Yeah.
Which has been going on since I guess it started in the 60s with the population bomb. By,
Ehrlich.
What's his name? Ehrlich. Paul Ehrlich. And his wife, actually, who I guess wrote most of it. Anyway. And I was just a little kid then, so I didn't really understand that. But I remember that people were very worried that there were so many children being born in India and all those kinds of places. But I mean, we've known since 25 years that it's not gonna be like 50 billion people on the planet. It's been tapering off for a long time. Yeah. But they're still saying these things. I know Anders Wijkman, for instance, he was co-writer of an op-ed in Swedish daily Dagens Nyheter a few years ago, where they, I mean, not ironically, wrote that we have to focus on the overpopulation problem. And it's kind of, I hear sometimes that I think you write in the book as well, that some groups, some people who are focusing on this among the elite, they talk about 500 million people, 500 million human beings on the planet. That's a sustainable level, which I think is ridiculously low. But it's already becoming a problem for those who look at this. I mean, the statistics in many countries, I think South Korea leads the way, because they have 0.7 children per woman. That's their total fertility rate now. It's incredibly low, and many countries that you think that people in general still think are having many babies, they're not. They're below 2.0. They are 1.3, 1.4.
So we will have a problem.
We will have a problem. We will have a world of old people pretty soon, actually.
Yeah.
So is that what they want? Do they want? I mean, these elite people. What do they mean when they talk about this? That we need fewer people. I can't understand that, because it's going to be a problem for growth, economic growth. If that's something that you.
But I think Larry Fink talked about it. But now we will have a technology that we could use instead.
So we're not going to.
So we can take care of old people with the fourth industrial revolution technology, and so I think.
And we're not going to need workers anymore.
Yes, exactly, and we will not need people to do these things for us. So we better get rid of them.
But on the outside, on the surface, they have this the reasoning that this is bad for environment and bad for climate that we have so many people. Isn't that right?
It is.
So it's just
and it's. I mean, if you go back into the environmental history, it's a lot of overpopulation is everything, and for the Rockefellers in the 50s, they talk about overpopulation, and that gets connected with climate change in the 50s. It's the same kind of policies, the same kind of organizations working with this.
Now, I suppose the people like you and myself also, who are perhaps not so easily controlled, and who sometimes see or at least sense nefarious ends behind decisions of different kinds. We also need to be aware of the human tendency of confirmation bias and seeing patterns where there perhaps aren't any patterns. If you see what I mean, there's a risk there. I'm not saying that you're subject to that risk, but do you think about that sometimes?
Yes.
And maybe you hear that a lot from people who consider you as a conspiracy theorist and nothing else.
Yes.
That you just see patterns that don't exist.
Yeah. But I think I document these patterns pretty thoroughly.
Exactly.
So I really try to, I mean, I have changed my mind a couple of times in my life when I have seen evidence that but don't support the things that I believed in before. So I think it's scientific evidence is very, very, very important. That's why I quit from I was a part of a Green Party environmental movement, and I couldn't be part of that anymore when I began to study climate change. I had no idea before. It was in 2006. But I were doing a study in a student paper, and because I believed in the propaganda and everything what the newspaper said, and I remember talking to friends that were in the same university course, but now it's decided it's the humans that are responsible for this. And I remember one of them, he said, "How do you know that? How can you know that for certain?" And I don't know, I said. And then I checked the data, and I was shocked to find that there was no scientific evidence. It couldn't be, it was no proof, and it was based on models. And it was, what? This isn't science, I thought, and it changed me. It was a big change in thinking, and I just wanted to know why. And so I try to do this with everything. I think to be a good scientist is always to question the things that you have found. Okay, what's the weak spots in this? So I try to do, and that's why I don't want to pinpoint and said that these people are evil and stuff, and because it's I think a lot of people just they of course they want a good world and have nice relations with each other.
But it's a good thing to look a little deeper and see if there is another reality, another explanation for what they're saying and doing. And there's another aspect of this that I thought a lot about when I read your book, when I wrote your book, which has to do with spirituality, I guess, to a large extent. I'm into that myself, and I talk a lot about that on this channel. And you kind of your thought-provoking text there goes back in history and makes fascinating references that I recognize for the most part, but you make connections that I don't always resonate with, or maybe you can explain to me here, because, for instance, I mean, this is about a top-down control vision that has emerged since long time ago and has been developing over the course of centuries, and you kind of cross-mentioned things like Christian mysticism, the Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, Theosophy you've talked about already, anthroposophy, which is an offshoot of that, and you go as far back as to Eastern spiritual traditions. Of course, Hinduism and Buddhism is mentioned. The Kabbalah, which has several branches, I think, but the most known is the Jewish one. The Gnostics and Hermeticism, which I'm really, really fascinated by, which is extremely old. It goes back to the dynastic Egyptians and probably further back than that. And of course, given the title of the book, the first and second temples of Jerusalem you talk about, and now the idea that the third temple of Jerusalem is going to be restored here or built, and what they stood for in the spiritual human context. So I'm not sure whether you think that all those traditions have a dark purpose and have led to the morose transhumanist future that we might risk entering soon, or if you just mention them because they are kind of a part of this, and these elite groups have picked up parts of this and used it for their agenda. So what's your take on
Yeah.
all the, because these are big traditions.
Yeah, it is. So as I said in the beginning, I think a lot of these thoughts are actually, I mean, it's about human development, and a lot of good for. I've used a lot of this, and I agree upon a lot of these traditions as well. So, but I see that they have used this,
Okay.
and I talk about building the artificial temple. Because I think it's I try to build my temple. I'm the temple also. I'm a personal temple, and I have to take care of my temple and everything. I think it's very important. But they have, it's kind of hijacking a lot of these old traditions and replacing with an artificial mindset, and as I said, cheating, taking the easy way. Don't do the lessons that you have to do with experience, personal crisis, and so on. It's like the thinking, we create a crisis, but it can be good for you. You will evolve out of it. But I don't think I think it's that psychopathic to do it in that manner.
Exactly.
So
Everybody has to find the path, the way themselves.
Yeah.
We can help each other, we can assist each other, we can be supportive, but we can never tell anybody else where to go
exactly.
or how to evolve.
So I'm against the building of the artificial Temple of Solomon, not the real one. And what I think is coming is the artificial can't work, because and you can't. It's like thinking we can build something perfect, but I think we already live in a magic perfect world. And that's one I think I tried to explain in my last chapter, that it's like personal guidance. You get help and you meet the people you need in your life's journey.
Yeah, so you talk very personally about the synchronicities that you have experienced on your journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Which have led you to where you are now.
Yeah, and also it had given me, during very, very hard times in my life, it's like, oh, okay, you get help. There is something more. I mean, it's not just materialistic, where you just where your existence doesn't have any meaning. It has a meaning. Everyone has a meaning in this, and that's what I want to do. So I wanted to end the book with this, and I hope for everyone that we are part of something bigger, and so if we are looking for truth, we will get the help.
Fantastic. That's beautiful. And maybe there is a new world to be built, and maybe there is a new human to be evolved, but it has to come in a natural way.
Yes, exactly. So you can't do it with a social credit system to create better humans. That's because it's not coming from inside.
Point taken. Yeah. But also, it is a bit difficult, I think, sometimes to actually pinpoint what is natural and what is unnatural for human beings, because human beings we are a species that are very different from the other mammals, at least on the planet. As you know, this is a big discussion, and it is maybe topic for another podcast. But it is a bit strange sometimes when you ponder where we come from and why we become the way we have. And they say we come from the apes. Well, they're still looking like they did 12 million years ago. So
exactly.
Something happened. I don't know.
Exactly.
Super interesting.
Yeah, we have it's a lot of things we don't know. And I think it's wonderful that we don't know everything, because that's what makes it interesting to live, because you have so much mystery.
And maybe if we knew everything when we came here, come here, it wouldn't be as much of an adventure. It wouldn't be a school. We wouldn't learn anything.
Yeah. And I think life is an adventure, and it should all be fun. So we have to have fun.
Nice words to end on, a good note to end on. So your book now, The Temple of Solomon, is due on December 14th. So where can people find it and the earlier books and other work and music that you do? What's the easiest way?
I have a homepage, Nordangård.se, and I have a Swedish and an English page, and you can find books. And also you can have my YouTube channel, and where I have some lectures that I've given and interviews, earlier interviews.
And I'll put links in the description box as always.
And you can find music on Spotify and Bandcamp and
Wardenclyffe people. Wardenclyffe. Jacob, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. And well, thanks for being a guest on the show, and good luck with your continued truth seeking now.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Hello, my friends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to hit that like button and share the video with your friends. Please support the channel if you can. I appreciate all the support. You can become a Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or you can make a one-off donation via PayPal if you wish. All the links are in the description box below. Thank you.